Welcome, Kaira Rouda. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you, Anne. It's so great to be with you and everybody.
It's always a pleasure. For everybody's benefit, Kaira was kind enough to come up to the store yesterday and sign books. So her book is already in the window. It's already signed and waiting for everyone. That was so nice of you. I know you've been sheltering in place like so many of us have and being really careful. So it was very kind of you to do that.
Oh, well, it was so fun to be back in a bookstore again and to see you, even though we were like distanced, but still it was wonderful to be there.
Well, we were good. We wore our masks and we were far enough apart.
Oh, yeah.
And she also brought two four-legged friends. One sat on her lap during the entire time, which was perfect. And I did get some pictures, which I'll post later.
Oh, no.
But today we're here to talk about Kaira's newest book, which she has a poster behind her, and I'm holding up the book, which doesn't do a thing. Somebody's Home, which is number 4 or 5 now, right?
Yes, it's like my fourth domestic suspense or suspense, whatever they call it.
And I think absolutely by far the best. I had trouble putting this one down. Your stories are becoming complex and just oozing suspense and tension. And it's what we all look for when we pick up something like this.
Yay. Thank you so much. That means so much to me, as you
know. I'm not going to talk too much about plot because your plot is very involved and intertwined. I'm going to leave that up to you with whatever you want to talk about, but I wanted to talk about a couple of the characters. Sure. You've got the mother, Julie, who is newly single. There's hints that mom was not as supportive when she was growing up, so she has perhaps a little bit of a complex, but she's developing becoming a very strong person. Do you agree with that, with the life she's facing now?
Yes, I think she feels like she lost herself and kind of she married this really wealthy man, and she kind of made herself into the perfect image of the Orange County housewife, and when we meet Julie, she's kind of decided that she can't live in this gilded cage in a loveless marriage anymore, and that she needs to model, while she still can for her daughter, who's a senior in high school, a different path. And so she's purchased this house as a way to start over, kind of on the sly. And she moves her and her daughter out, like kind of in the morning when Roger is not even aware, kind of sneaks off to her new life.
Yeah, and very brave to do that, because
yeah,
nothing like that is easy. But then she's also dealing with a 17-year-old daughter, which those of us who have raised them know that's not easy.
Correct.
Just as a challenge. Doesn't always mean to be, but she adds a little to this. Not a little, she adds a lot to this.
She adds a lot. Yeah, she is very focused on just going to college in the fall. She's already been accepted to USC, and she really just needs her parents to stay out of her way and just get through high school. And really, she's just pretty much about like hanging out with friends and partying and that kind of thing. And so when her mom announces they're moving across town to the other side of the tracks to her, she can't even believe it. She's like, oh my goodness, now my mom's lost her mind. Why would she leave all of this and go to start over? So she's less than thrilled to be part of her mom's new beginning.
And less supportive, and throws a few kinks into things, probably without intending to, but she did.
Yeah, I mean, she's not a malicious child. She's just, she's naive. She's grown up in a very privileged lifestyle. She has cash handed to her every week by her dad. It's kind of unlimited. So she just hasn't had very much access, I mean, she hasn't really been in the real world. She's also been really coddled and protected. So when they move into the new home, in the back in the carriage house is the 20-something son of the previous owners, who has been given the weekend to move out because he was away when the whole transaction occurred. So she when she encounters Tom, she's never really met anyone like him before. So to Jess, that's intriguing. To her mom, it's terrifying.
Understandably,
Yeah.
yes. So you've got these two women who are adjusting to a new life, and for good reason. And I also found it interesting that the agent's name is Judy. So we've got 3 J's going here.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't even know why I do that. I mean, the names just kind of come out, and then they, yeah, and there are a lot of, I guess, it's my next book. There are a lot of characters with 4-letter names. So my editor's like, can you pick a different letter count, please? Yeah, okay. I know. Yeah. So they just kind of pop up, and sorry, I didn't even realize that until you just said it.
Well, I thought it was, I gave you credit for it being on purpose because I assumed Judy was going to add to all of this.
Yes.
I think I already mentioned, I think every book you've written is just better than the previous one. They're all good, but you have become such a strong author, and dealing with women's issues and women's plights. You did such a wonderful job of this. And I'm going, because I don't want to step on any, what do I want to call it? Any clue, anything. I'm going to let you tell us an overall of what you feel the book is about and why we should enjoy this.
Yeah, and I mean, I do this all the time, but I love the copy on the back because that explains it without giving anything away. So I'll just read that to you guys. I don't have it memorized, but okay. So I love this, how it opens. It says, lock your doors, close the blinds, and pretend that you're safe. Okay, so Julie Jones, who we were just talking about, has left her suffocating marriage. With her teenage daughter, Jess, she's starting over. Their new house in Oceanside is the first step toward a new life, even if it does come with the unexpected. The previous owners, a pastor and his wife, have left something, or rather someone, behind. That's Tom. Tom Dean has a bitter hatred for the father who considers him a lost cause, and for the woman who's moved into their family's house, the only home he's ever known. He's never going to leave. She thinks he'll be gone in 3 days, but Tom has a perfect plan. For a newly single mom and her daughter, a fresh start is the beginning of a nightmare. Before the weekend is over, somebody is going to get exactly what they deserve.
And you can't wait to open the book and get started.
I mean, it was a fun one to write because of the multiple personalities. And I didn't really even know that I was going to do that. There's a question from Barbara about writing in first person, different points of view, which was really fun because I kind of had one first point of view and best day ever and favorite daughter. And then I added like 3, 4 for the next wife. And then this is like 6. So don't worry, I won't add any more, but I don't write I write the different viewpoints in sequence because I'm a pantser. So I write by the seat of my pants. So in this case, Tom popped into my head first. And so he's the first character that you meet in the book. And then it goes from there. And what's interesting about it, I guess, is my characters all wanted to say something, like they're like, wait, he's lying. So, they're kind of waiting to come up on the stage. And so what I have to do when I'm writing in this kind of style is to keep a list of who's gotten to talk last, so I don't let somebody get too much airtime, which is really fun. I really like that.
Well, another person says you write characters we love to hate. Do you actually know people like this? Doesn't everyone?
Well, I think we all do in some respect. I mean, it's just, my men especially tend to be pretty nasty guys. I mean, not all, well, yeah, pretty much. And so, it's just a mindset. So I think I really did. I say this every time in every book, but I had a spectacular selection of really horrible male bosses throughout my entire career, and they're just in my head. So when I need a character, one of them pops out, I think, is what's happening, but I'm not really sure.
That sounds like fun. You can take revenge.
Yes, exactly. And they don't really know who they are. No one knows who they are. Well, they would know who they were if they read.
Probably. Yeah, which would be very satisfying, wouldn't it?
Oh my gosh, yes. I don't picture any of them ever be big readers, but
Oh, and they would consider it a woman's book from the way you sound about them.
Right, exactly. I know. That's what's tough. Like this whole, I mean, domestic situations are equally a husband and wife. And so it's not a women's fiction. It's definitely a tangle. But yes, some people do think that. In fact, I got this question last night at this at the Huntington Beach Public Library. The guy interviewing me, he's like, so you write for women? Is this a women audience? I'm like, no, stop the madness. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, he was paying a little bit of attention, not much, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What, again, I want to be careful. What did you find that was the hardest part of this to write? Was there a point where you were really kind of stopped to carry the story forward? Did you know when you started how it was going to end?
I knew that they were all going to have some kind of like Crash the movie, that they would all come together, and I knew that it would involve the house. I wasn't really sure how it would all untangle, because that would be plotting and I don't know. So I just kind of have to listen to my characters. The hardest part of this book was I was writing this during the early days of the pandemic. So when we were all terrified to like touch our groceries or like be around anybody and everybody's at home. And so the notion that came to me was, well, what if, what if your home wasn't safe? And during a pandemic, it would be terrifying too, but it's not about the pandemic, but that was kind of the feeling and kind of the tension in the air. I think that
and
kind
the
of
anxiety.
that seeps into this book. And so with this story, my characters went really dark. I mean, the book as it is now is after reeling some of them back from doing even worse things. So I would be writing and I'm like, oh, no, you can't do that. No. And I scared myself with this book. I scared myself and had to run downstairs and stop writing. We're like, no. And I can't tell you who, but it was. So anyway, so this one was, they were only hard to wrangle in because they wanted to be even worse than they actually are. So if you can imagine.
Okay, so you had to sort of dial it down and go back. And I've got somebody in the waiting room I've been neglecting. Hold on here a second. Oops. Important to get them all in here.
Oh, and sorry, Carol, for ruining best day ever phrase for your family. I know. Yeah.
Okay, well, I've got one more. Somehow there we go. The pandemic gave you the atmosphere or this anxiety level to work with this, and that seeped into the book, which only made it more so. I kept turning the pages. I kept wanting to know what was going to happen next. It was one of those. But that feeling of tension and anxiety just kind of crept into it, which is wonderful. When you talk about dialing it back, did that involve going all the way back to the beginning and replotting, or just
no, mostly just making sure that two of the characters actually wanted to do more devious things along the way, and I just had to keep them from, because it's already scary enough, I thought. So yeah, not really a rewrite on that, more like, okay, stop. In process. Yeah.
What do you do when you're writing? Do you share pages with someone? Do you just do it?
Yeah, I just do it, and then after I've got a first draft, then I can share it with people, but not until, I can't even really talk about it until after I have it down. Because if I do, then the characters just leave. They just go away.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That makes it hard. Says, I'm missing part of the sentence for some reason, but it says, do you pick out characters and events for future books?
Oh yeah, and from the many events in this book were pulled from the news. There's a couple incidences that were just straight from the news that was happening about the same time as I was writing this. And I think the news and things that happen in the world do affect all of us. And then as a novelist, it's going to, some of them will like stick with me and somehow in the back of my brain, you know, if it's particularly like tragic or scary or, you know, that kind of thing, it'll probably stick with me. But yeah, so I don't think I'm consciously picking them out, but I think you're always just kind of scanning for ideas.
Well, I think too, and you have to have different voices in the book. So you portrayed the daughter beautifully, but then you have daughters, right?
Yeah, I have a daughter, Avery, and she actually will read my teen girl. And anytime I have a character that's a young woman, I have her read and just make sure I'm not sounding like a, you know, completely off for how she would sound. So Avery helped with Jess. She also helped with the daughter and the next wife and the daughter and the favorite daughter. So yeah, she's helped a lot.
I think that's great. You have someone to bounce that off of.
Oh yeah, super fun. She's a screenwriter, so we actually worked together to develop a pilot script for the favorite daughter, which was really fun too.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah.
And has that gone anywhere? Is that going to
Not
possibly
yet.
happen?
I'll let you know.
I understand those are always things that are up in the air until they finalize. It's just not something you can be sure about. But wouldn't that be exciting?
It would be fun. Yes. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and just, you know, hope for the best.
Okay. Best day ever really freaked me out. That saying is kind of our family's favorite phrases. Now, when used, I kind of freak out. So looking forward to this book.
I know. This one, yeah, somebody's home is not really one of those catchy phrases, so it won't haunt you, hopefully.
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 What if you did have, now I know each book has its own set of characters, so you don't, they're all standalones. What's your favorite one? And if you could cast it, who would you cast in it?
Oh, golly. See, that's hard. That's like asking about who's your favorite child, right? Because they're all different. And, but I would say Best Day Ever is probably my favorite in my heart, just because it was my kind of breakout book. And it ended up really opening doors. And also it was just such a lovely turn of events. My agent didn't want to read the manuscript because she didn't read stuff like this. And then I finally had to beg her. And then she ended up selling it to HarperCollins Harlequin. And then I got a call like a few months later from my new editor who said, oh, we're going to start a new imprint and your book's going to be one of the lead titles. And then she called a few months later and said, oh, we're going to make it hardcover. And, you know, like it just had that kind of, it was so fun. And then they sent me to Book Expo in New York, and I walk in the Javits Center and there's this huge poster of the book cover hanging up, and I almost had a stroke. It was so exciting. It was like a dream come true. So to answer your question, I think Best Day Ever, because it had all that fun that happened around it. It was really special.
It would be. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I didn't think editors could say they don't want to read a book. I'm sorry.
Agents can. Yeah, agents can. Yeah, she's like, because we were working together on women's fiction, and I had just sent her an outline for another women's fiction book, which was like a 4-book series about moms in a salad bar or something. Anyway, and she was still reading that when Paul popped into my head for Best Day Ever. So I wrote the Best Day Ever and sent it to my beta reader, and she's like, "This is great. You've got to tell Katie to read it." And she's like, "No, I don't read this stuff." I'm like, oh no, now what? But then she, like, I want to say like 5 days later, I woke up, she was in New York, and my inbox was just inundated. Call me as soon as you wake up. I love the story. I stayed up all night reading. So that was fun.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah.
I can't imagine someone saying that to an author or someone that they're representing.
Yeah.
It says, and you said something just now. You said that book popped into your head.
Yes.
Is this what happens? Is it triggered by something you've seen or heard or read, or is it just your mind suddenly clicks and you've got a story?
Yeah, and I can't even point to what triggers it, but it's like that. Like all of a sudden it pops into my head, or character usually will pop into my head. and then usually a title, but not always. Sometimes both, and sometimes just a character. Yeah, and then the fun begins.
And do you ever have it happen consecutively? I have one author who will have maybe 2 or 3 ideas pop into their head, and they've got to make notes because they can only do one at a time. Does that happen to you, or do you?
Yeah, not so far. No, it's been pretty, like, I kind of just tell myself, I don't want you to tell me anything else right now. Like, come on, I've got to work on my, edits or whatever it is that I'm working on. I can't have any ideas. Like, yeah, I told myself, like, December, you're going to take time off. So do not think about ideas. So I'm slowly gearing up to think again.
Well, you need a break in between, don't you?
Yeah.
It isn't as easy as people think to get a book together and have it published. And then the touring this year particularly, and last, has been such a challenge.
Such a challenge. Yeah.
Did you go at all to any live ones?
Nope. Nope. It's just me and my computer at my house talking to folks like you, which, is a blessing, obviously, because without this, I wouldn't be talking to anybody. And so you having me on and talking to all you guys it's not the same as being together. We were talking about this yesterday, but it's way better than nothing, for sure. And it is my second pandemic release. So I'm a professional pandemic book tour person now.
Yes, you are.
And it better not be still on in November when my next book is here. We just have to be past this.
Oh, no. Yeah. We are just not going to allow it, right?
No,
because we want you in the store talking to us personally.
Yes.
And do you want to give any kind of a hint about the next book? Do you want to talk about it at all? Some do and some don't.
Yeah, I mean, it comes, I don't have like my elevator pitch down for it yet, but it comes out November 15th, and it's called The Widow, and it's set in Washington, D.C. It's my first Washington, D.C. based book. And I got to spend a couple of years there when my husband was in Congress. And
right.
I just thought, wow, what a great, fascinating, devious, scary, important place DC is, and wouldn't it be fun to have some characters like stomping around in there? So the story is about Jody Asher. She's the spouse of Martin Asher, who's been a long-term congressman. He's been there 30 years, I think, when the book opens. And let's see, I don't know how I can say it without giving, Martin unfortunately meets an untimely demise, and Jody decides she's going to run for his seat.
All right.
Yeah. So it's something around that. There's a tradition in DC called the Widow's Mandate, and it's one of the ways that the first women began to serve in the House and the Senate. So on the Senate side, if your spouse, usually it was a husband back in the day, dies in office, then the governor of your state traditionally appoints the spouse to fill out the remainder of the term. Mm-hmm. And then on the congressional side, on the House side, there'll be a special election. So Jody will have to run for the seat and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that sounds really good.
It's really interesting, and I've got to figure out how to tell it better without giving anything away. But anyway, so stay tuned for The Widow. She's coming.
So we have something to look forward to in November. That's wonderful. And I agree with you. If we're not in good shape by then, we're in trouble. And I'm being told there's 4 new messages down here. So let me find them. Are you able to see them on your side?
I am. Barbara's asking, what was your path to becoming a writer, and how did you decide to write domestic suspense rather than something else? And yeah, I mean, I wanted to be an author in 3rd grade. Our teacher had us write to the person we wanted to become when we grew up, which is such a great thing. So anyway, so I wrote to Robert McCloskey, my favorite author at the time, Make Way for Ducklings, Blueberries for Sal. And he actually, I know, me too. And he actually wrote me back, and he said, dear little Kaira, thank you for writing to me, but I'm an illustrator, not an author. You should do your research next time. My first rejection, right, as an author, which is kind of the story of publishing, right? Anyway, but so I went.
But at least he wrote back.
He did. He did. And I went to college. I was an English literature major. I didn't write anything for, consumption because I was too shy still. And then I got my first job at a newspaper and as a researcher, but then worked my way up to starting to get bylines. And I'll never forget, like when my first story came out and you see your name and you're like, but it was really fun. And then I wrote a lot for magazines and regional and national, and then also had a kind of big career in marketing. So I was doing that for a long time and had 4 kids and all that. And my first book I wrote was a nonfiction book for women entrepreneurs. So that was called Real You Incorporated, 8 Essentials for Women Entrepreneurs, written because I had been going around and kind of speaking to, we built a real estate company, and I was going around speaking, especially to women who make up the majority of the agent population back then, to help them realize that your personal brand is your unique essence, and how to market that into your business brand. And also teaching people that 93% of all household purchases are made or influenced by women, which back at the time, we're talking like 2000s, that all the real estate companies were still 2 men shaking hands in front of a yard sign, as if like that's who all the deals were about. So anyway, talking about the power of women, both as a consumer and as the entrepreneur. So I went around the country speaking, because I didn't know this, but once you write a nonfiction book, they make you go on speaking tour. Like, no, it's all in the book. Just anyway. So I think I'm in Austin, and I'm talking to like 1,000 women group, and I'm like, you got to put your passion into action, live your life of your dreams. And, if there's something you've always wanted to do, you need to do it now and get started. You can do it on the side. And I'm like, Kaira, you need to go take your own advice. So that's when I sat down and finally wrote my first novel, which my agent at the time told me to base it loosely on my nonfiction advice. So it's a women's fiction story about a woman with a midlife crisis, and she makes a to change list for herself. And they're kind of based on the same things I was speaking to women about, but it's a great story. Your Home Hope.
And it was a good way to start.
It was. And then from there, I've been just getting darker and darker and darker.
Yes, you are.
So that's kind of what happened to me. I don't know why.
But that's a wonderful background for becoming an author. Not only the education that you have with the newspaper and all of the other magazines and everything, but the touring, because you were put in different situations in different places.
Oh yeah, for sure. I had to hire a speech coach because I was terrified. Like if you see me, oh boy, like I couldn't have even done this without doing that back then. So it really, yeah, it's definitely a skill that's so important to learn. And yeah, for me, it was hard, but worth it.
Well, you've done a wonderful job with it.
Thank you.
Let's see what else is down here.
Okay.
We have wonderful people contributing here.
Yeah.
I see one talking about many events seem to be pulled from the news.
Yep.
And do you pick out character? Well, you answered that a little bit before, where your characters come from. A book when you don't dial it back, would love it. So nobody wants you to dial anything back.
I know. Watch out what you wish for.
Yes, really. And you've sort of answered this, that your teachers or professors encourage you. Who would you say was your biggest influence when you were in school?
Well, okay, so that 3rd grade teacher, which I cannot find her anywhere because I really want to thank her, but the person, the youngest Kaira person remembered is my librarian in elementary school, Mrs. Gardier. And she actually laminated the story I wrote about Scooter and Skipper and put it on the shelves in the library.
Oh.
She was such a great librarian. And years later, I mean, I want to say like 5 years ago now, a group of us nominated her for like the highest award in the school district, and she won, which was great. It was shortly before she passed away, but yeah, she was such a, I don't know, just such a treasure, and she affected and influenced so many people like me through her career.
It sounds wonderful for someone to go above and beyond to do something like that with a story, and how wonderful that makes a child feel.
Well, yeah, because you can see it, right? Because it's tangibly, like my book's at the library. People can check out my book. Yeah, it was amazing.
Wonderful. I'm so glad she won.
Yeah, me too.
Something to make you feel good because you appreciated her so much, and for her to be rewarded that way from years of service. Teachers don't always get the credit that they deserve, and librarians.
Right.
Yeah. Um, Barbara is wonderful with her questions. I don't know what we'd do without her. She wants to know, what books and authors do you read?
Gosh, I read a lot actually. Now this is interesting. During the pandemic, I couldn't read. All I could do was write or watch streaming things on like this. It was
We talked
crazy.
about that yesterday, and I told you how bad I was. If I was hitting that little square down in the right-hand corner, just watching whatever.
Right.
I
Yeah,
agree.
it's so weird. It was so weird. Like something about the concentration required to like get into a page was hard, but I'm back. I'm back into reading again. And I just finished The Maid. I don't know if you've read that yet, but
Not yet.
it's really, you did, Barbara? Yeah. It's really, really like good, but also like heartwarming too. I think that's maybe why it's hitting, unlike mine, it's heartwarming at the end. So it really, it makes you feel good when you close it. So that's nice. And yeah, what else do I have? Oh, I have I think it's called A Flicker in the Dark. Is that something? You heard of that one?
What was that? I couldn't.
I think it's A Flicker in the Dark is next to my bed. I think that's
Yes.
the title. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to tackle that one next.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. I think we're going to open it up, go back to gallery view and see if anybody has any direct comments or questions. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, perfect.
Wonderful. So there's everybody. And you can unmute yourselves if you want to talk to Kaira. I'm sure you have others that you didn't type in. Everybody get unmuted by any chance?
Stunned silence.
Hi, Kaira. I asked a question about, are you interested, or maybe you already are mentoring other writers? Is that something that is interesting, or is that just another step beyond what, drives you to write?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I have a whole tab on my website for other writers because this community is very supportive and very, like very, very inclusive and fun. And I've like really benefited by knowing other authors, and, we do endorsement blurbs for each other's books and things. I don't know that I'm like like one-on-one direct mentoring. I don't know that I would be good at that because I don't have a process I can share. I just kind of write. So, but as far as what I like to share with other writers, my expertise on marketing and creating your brand as an author, that's kind of what I share on my website for people.
And that's a big help. That's not something that everyone is good at.
Yeah, and I learned it along the way because when I moved into this industry, this career field, it was just the beginning of being able to actually self-publish books or, small press publish. There's so many different choices and so many avenues to get published. So I think it's helpful to look at everything. And I always try to remind people that you might be like a New York Times bestseller today, but tomorrow you could be different. So let's all be nice to each other up and down the food chain and support each other as best we can.
Yeah. Mentioned that you write by the seat of your pants, so to speak, but do you know how the ending is going to go when you start, or is there a lot of revision then? Do you have to go back and like, oh, I need a little clue here, a little clue there, or how does that whole revision process work?
Yeah, good question. So at the beginning, like with Best Day Ever, I just wrote it and I didn't know where we were going, and it just kind of happened, which was super magical and apparently not a preferred method for agents who would like to know what you're doing and where you're going and like have a little input along the way. So subsequently, I found they would like a little outline before I start writing, which is not fun, as I might have mentioned, for my characters who like to surprise me. So we're trying to work in some kind of, I think we just learned the term planter. So it's a plotter and a pantser kind of merged together. So I could lightly show them where I might be going. So I'm going to try that on my next one, I think. But the other thing is I might just write it and then make an outline and then I don't know. It's hard for me to write an outline. It really is.
Well, the people that do are devoted to it, but they also point out they don't want to be restricted by it.
Right.
And if that's
Right.
not something you're comfortable with, I wouldn't mess with how you're doing, because you're doing well.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I think I'm going to kind of pretty much stay where I am, but like pretend I'm doing an outline after I get the draft done. That's what I'm
Okay.
thinking. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking here. Anything you want to, are there more government plans? Is your husband thinking of running again for something?
Yeah, I mean, he was running for this district again, anxious to take on the woman that beat him by just a little tiny margin. And then while we were on vacation, a different congressperson tweeted that she was running in the seat, so leaving us no place to run, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
So if she has indicated that she wants to probably run for Senate. So if she does that next, then he'll probably, I mean, he did a great job and he didn't feel like he had enough time to finish what he started. So he would
Of
like
course.
to run in this district again, yes. But right now we have someone else who's decided to run here. So anyway, super, super fun. Politics is so lovely. It really is.
Yeah, but it's a whole other world.
It really is. And that's why it makes such a great setting for fiction.
Yes.
When you talk about
Yes.
people that we love to hate, there's quite a few there.
Oh yeah. It's just filled with great characters. Mhm.
And did you stay in Washington for any length of time while he was in office?
Yeah, I would go for about 10 days a month. So like a third of the time there. And it was so great. I mean, you know, the history. And then I loved the Library of Congress. And so I was learning how to be a docent there and show people around. And I mean, it's just fabulous, right? And there's just so much to love there. So I kept myself really busy just going to monuments and going to libraries and museums. And I mean, you could spend a life there and never see everything.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
But how
And-
wonderful you got involved enough to be a docent. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it was so fun. And then I joined this thing called the Congressional Club, and hopefully they don't kill me because they're in my book. But it's
You slipped that in very quickly.
I did, didn't I? Yeah. So hopefully no one will play this back. But they are a club for spouses of like the oldest club for spouses of members of Congress, and so that was nice too because they host the First Ladies Luncheon every year. It's bipartisan, so it just flips back and forth between a Republican spouse who's hosting it, no matter who the president is, and then Democrat spouse. So it was really nice. So I got to meet all of these spouses, some who have been in, their spouse has been in Congress for 30 years, and then like us new people were like all deer in headlights stuff. So it was really fun.
It sounds like it. Yes,
Yeah.
someone says we need Harley in DC and we'll support him whenever he decides to run again.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
It adds another dimension to your life.
It does. And really, he was so good at it. He brought so much back to the district, and I mean, dollars and just like credibility. Because, anyway, there was a lot that he did and a lot he wanted to keep doing. But he does plan on running again, should this.
I think that's wonderful. And
Yeah.
that you're so supportive. That's always helpful too.
Aw, thanks.
Anybody else with any more questions? I think we've pretty much covered the topic. You've been wonderful with us. So appreciate you coming by yesterday to sign.
Of course, it was
we
so
have,
fun.
like I said, we have Kaira's books in the store. They're signed and ready for customers. I have several orders. People came by even after you left and were buying. They were so thrilled that they were signed already.
Oh, right. Oh, great. That's awesome. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. We'll definitely make a date for November. Can't
Yes,
wait
I
for the
love
next book.
Yay.
Do you have a title yet?
Yes, it's called The Widow.
So you did say that. Thank
Yep.
you. Well, we're going to look forward to finding out what the widow is up to in November.
She
you
might
so
be a
much
little
for today.
dastardly. Yeah,
Thanks so
fine.
much for today, Kaira. It's been wonderful.
Thank you,
And you'll
Anne.
be going on YouTube eventually, so everybody will be able to watch it.
Okay. Oh, great. That fears
Bye.
Thank you
keeping
very
things-
much, Kara. It was
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thanks,
Thank
you guys.
You
Thank
do a
you.
wonderful
Bye-bye.
job.
Aw,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Anne.
It's
Okay,
wonderful.
bye, guys.
Bye-bye now.
Aw, bye.
Take care.